see this move off to the north, and this would actually get closer to Salisbury. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new storm track on this. This is actually, I'm going to put this at around 10 miles an hour because it is moving very, very slowly. If we track it off in this direction, this means it's going to be in Salisbury. At 10 miles per hour would be 7:44. I don't think it's going to be that long, but it kind of tells you why that warning is so long till 7:30. So what I'll do is we'll add a little bit of speed there just to give you a little bit more of a heads up. We'll track the rotation right there heading towards Salisbury. And again, so that's around 7:17 this evening. That's the rotation we're watching. So that is a tornado warning for Rowan County now. This is the same cell that prompted the warning earlier. They have reissued the warning for Rowan County because the cell that obviously looks like it might have tightened up briefly. And when I look at it, I'm going to look at the structure again. The reason I think the warning was reissued is because right there, just south of Mill Bridge, we've seen a little bit of an increase in rotation. Not a ton, but it was showing signs of weakening earlier, so we're starting to see it ramp back up. The Weather Service, I'm just chatting with them, saying unfortunately the cell is very strengthened and the structure improved. Even though it's not strong rotation, it's notable, and that's obviously what I'm looking at right here on the radar as well. So clearly some rotation right there south of Highway 150. This is solidly in Rowan County now. So this is just for the central part of Rowan County, but it's kind of paralleling just west of I-85. So folks traveling north on I-85 from Kannapolis and China Grove, you're traveling right into that area. It's off to your west if you're traveling in that direction. So again, like before, if you're in parts of Rowan County, we want you in that lowest level of your home, most interior room, away from the outside walls and windows. And if you're watching me anywhere, whether it's online or on air or cable streaming, make sure you tell people. If you got friends in this area, call, text them, let them know, hey, this storm has had a history of producing funnel clouds. We've got so many pictures and videos over the Lake Norman area and then the Mooresville area, south side of Mooresville. That same storm is now moving into Rowan County. So the warning is up until 7:30. That's an hour-long warning. You don't normally see warnings that long. I almost think they might have mistakenly put that warning out too long, but 7:30 seems like a very long warning for that. But I think it's a reflection of plotting the track at 10 miles per hour and seeing how long it takes to get up there. And obviously 7:40 would be a long time to get to Salisbury because it is 6:30 right now. It's probably not going to take that long. So don't be surprised if this warning is either canceled or changed early. But again, it's still 7:30. So we want you to stay in your shelter location. Friends and family in that area, make sure they know as well. Looking at some of the pictures and videos, really weak rotation on almost every picture or video that we've seen. But again, that's the precursors. It could spin up quickly, and if you see that quick spin up, then you're going to be worried about a stronger tornado. So let's look at the rotation. Again, looking at the rotation, it looks like right there, same location, Bradshaw Road. Here's Mill Bridge. This is Sloan Road to the north. Mill Bridge Road is right here. And then this is east of, just looks like east of Jackson Road and far enough west of Patterson Road. So kind of in this general vicinity south of Highway 150. It looks like it's going to stay on the south side of Highway 150. So you know the Highway 150, when you come out of Mooresville, out of Iredell County, you're driving into Rowan County and eventually all the way over to Salisbury. That's the corridor we're looking at here in Rowan County right now. Just got a great picture. Thank you, Cameron, of about a few miles west of China Grove. Sent me a picture. It looks like a lowering. It's hard to tell. It looks like a wall cloud, but that was west of China Grove, which is right here, looking off in this direction. Definitely have a lowering in that area. Probably a rotating wall cloud traveling northeast at, again, just 10 miles per hour. That's why you're seeing that such a long duration warning right now until 7:30. If you guys see any damage reports or anything, let me know, because that's the one thing that has been the good sign with this system. Lots of funnel cloud reports, a lot of pictures and videos, no damage. So that's an indication that this is probably not touching the ground in many locations. If it is, it's not producing a lot of damage. And looking at the video, that's impressive video. I think the best videos and pictures we've seen have been over Lake Norman because of the visibility. You're able to see all the way to the water surface. So when you look at that, you can actually see some spray. So technically that would be a tornadic water spout. It was a tornado that moved over water. unlike the kind of what we call fair weather water spouts, which form over the ocean and the Great Lakes when you have just a cumulus cloud. This was actually a thunderstorm producing a tornado that happens to be over the water surface.
Damage reports. We are getting some power outages reported in the Mooresville area, around 300 folks without power. That was reported around 6 o'clock. It still looks like the cause hasn't been determined and the crews are still en route from Duke, but that seems to be kind of around that area that you've been focusing on this afternoon.
Yeah, that is interesting that we had some outages in the area. So maybe we had a brief touchdown in that area, took a tree branch, and that's all it takes is a tree or a tree branch to get pushed into some power lines to knock the power out. Now, we did have damage reports earlier in the day in Salisbury, but that was with a separate storm that had some strong winds. That's not associated with this storm yet, but we did have those cells that pushed through earlier this morning that helped produce, unfortunately, some wind damage in that area. I'm going to widen it out just to show you the overall view. There are other storms out there. I will tell you these other storms do not have the same type of signatures or indications of rotation, but I am going to look at all of them just to be on the safe side. I was telling Vanessa earlier that what this reminds me of, this kind of setup we have today, it's not what you would call a significant severe weather setup day, but it does remind me of like a landfalling tropical system. You know how muggy and humid it is out there, and sometimes when you have really deep moisture like we have over us today and over this week with the flood threat, if you get just a little bit of spin and sunshine, you can get these brief setups because the cloud base is so close to the ground. There's very little room between the cloud base and the ground. It makes it easier for tornadoes to spin up very quickly. And again, I'm looking at some of the cameras in this area as well just to see the DOT cams in the area. I'm not seeing anything that looks like it's touching the ground. A lot of lowerings. Most of the videos I'm getting now are just of, looks like a low-hanging cloud. It does not look like the same type of funnel. And one of the things that's actually working in our favor, these other storms. Thing about tornadic storms, they like to be by themselves. They want their own inflow and outflow. When you get other storms around them, it disrupts that flow and actually will weaken this storm, hopefully, especially on the backside. So the fact that we've got storms coming up through Cornelius and Mooresville on the backside might actually help weaken this system. So even though this warning is up until 7:30, I will be shocked if we're still here at 7:30 because there's a very good chance that this will be canceled early if the rotation looks like it weakens enough as it pushes through. As I look at the velocity data, I don't see any signs of rotation there right now. If anything, it looks like it even got weaker since those first couple of scans. So that's a good sign that we've seen that kind of weaken since then. The reason the warning was put back up was because we did have a brief, I would say, enhancement of some of the rotation in there. And when you see that, you tend to see the warning issued back up. Now, again, if you're in the tornado warned area, remember the place to go in your house. Find a safest spot. That green room in the middle of the house, that's where you want to go. That's an interior room. If you have a basement, that's great. If you don't, go to the lowest floor of your house and get to that center room. It could be a closet, could be a hallway, could be a pantry. It could even be underneath the stairs, a half bath, anything like that. And when you want to get in that room on the lowest floor, is put as many walls between you and the outside. And if you have a helmet, baseball, hard hat, biking helmet, we have helmets for everything now. Grab those helmets and put it on your head. The number one thing that happens in tornadoes, people get injured. 80% of the injuries and fatalities are from head trauma. People get hit and stuff. So you want to make sure you're down in that safe spot if you can. And stay there until we give you the all clear, which could be coming quicker than you think. I'm looking at the Weather Service. We're kind of chatting back and forth to see how long this warning stays up. I just think it's probably going to be canceled early just because of the way the storm looks. But what they're going to do, and this is always a wise and the prudent thing to do, is make sure it's completely gone or dissipated or weakened enough that they can give it, because what you don't want to do is what just happened is the warning go away and a new one pop up and then confuse everybody. So the warning is currently in effect for central Rowan County. That's south of Cleveland, but it's north of Kannapolis. So China Grove, Salisbury, Rockwell, those areas, Granite Quarry, you're in that as well. And again, this is just northwest of China Grove right now. I'm going to pause this and we'll put on the velocity data. Again, we're looking, there's nothing that's strong here. There's no strong rotation. The velocity data will say away from the radar are the reds and yellows. So that's the winds going this way. The greens would be towards, or the blues, this way. The radar's down on that side of the screen. You're just seeing some general reds and very weak winds, nothing too strong. There was a little hint of some rotation there earlier, which prompted the warning, but that went away pretty quickly. Just issued a flood advisory for this area as well. On top of that, that's what we thought would be the biggest concern today is the flooding, because obviously we just had one storm go through and two more, so there is a flood advisory in effect for this area as well. But this is the tornado warning, which is up until 7:30 this evening. And again, to me, honestly, I think this is weakening pretty quickly, guys, and we're going to see this kind of fall apart. Unlike when it was over the Mooresville area, Lake Norman area, the pictures and videos I'm getting now are nothing remotely close to what we had to the west, which is actually a very good sign. That tells you that you're not seeing the same type of rotation, or at least the structure to the storm that we had earlier.
Brad, you were talking about those downpours. Any idea of how much rain a system like this could put down in a span of a couple of minutes?
These are all tropical downpours, and the rainfall rates have been generally around 2 to 3 inches per hour. In fact, we can pull up the rainfall rates real quickly here. See if I can grab the rainfall rates, and we'll kind of show you what those rates look like in some of these cells. You'll plot them here, and some of them are putting down some pretty good rainfall. We'll query this real quickly. So this one near Troutman is putting down 2.78 inches per hour, and the one near Mooresville about 1.14. Now, it's not raining for a whole hour, but that's the rate. If it was to rain for an hour, that's how much would fall. Okay. So if it rains for 10 minutes, you break that up. You divide by that time and you get how much rain. But anything above about 1.5 inches an hour is pretty heavy, but almost 2.5, 3 inches of rain per hour is pretty heavy rain. So that's a whole other threat we need to worry about, is the flood risk, which is going to be one that's going to build, but also driving. In 77 right now, make sure you have the headlights on when your wipers on and just slow it down. The visibility is bad out there. And again, the fact that this is getting kind of taken over by other storms, this is the other problem. This is probably why we're not getting as many pictures and videos. This thing's becoming rain wrapped. Whatever's out there, it's just shrouded in rain. So if there was a tornado in there, you wouldn't see it. So we got to rely on remote sensing, which is the radar data. And the radar data is not showing any signs of rotation currently in central Rowan County. So that's good news. The fact that we're not seeing any of that, and just based on my Twitter feed, based on earlier, back there, guys, we were getting tons of reports of funnel clouds, wall clouds, even looked like a tornado maybe getting close to the ground. But in this case, we're not seeing that. So that tells me, we're not seeing nearly the type of structure to the storm that we had earlier. So we'll see if this keeps going until 7:30, but I have a sneaky suspicion that it's not going to happen. It's not going to stay up that long, guys.
So when you were saying that you're starting to see some of this fall apart, are you talking specifically about this area of rotation that the radar has indicated, or just the actual line of storms together?
Yeah, it's really this storm here. It's lost its structure. Now, you were asking that, Vanessa, we're kind of chatting back and forth, kind of multitask over here. The Weather Service says the storm has lost the structure, just as like I mentioned, but they're going to keep the warning in place just for a little bit to see if it goes through a cycle. And what we mean by cycling, sometimes what happens with storms is they'll go through this phase where they strengthen, the storm will strengthen, the tornado will occlude. And what I mean by that, it gets wrapped into the inflow and dissipates, but sometimes a new circulation will form and wrap around the backside. So it goes through what's called a cycle, and storms can go through a cycling phase. And so what they're going to do is, yes, it's lost its structure and weakened, but we're going to wait this out maybe 10 or 15 minutes to see if it goes through that cycle and a new rotation forms on the backside. So the area we would be looking at now, the earlier rotation was near China Grove. We'll look back to the northwest a little bit, back more into the heavier rain, south of Mount Ula, and we'll look east of Mooresville, south of Highway 150. Just had a volume scan, which is another sweep of the radar. We're not seeing any rotation showing up right there, but we're definitely seeing some heavy rain. Just thanks to the fire department up in Iredell. Trees down 100 block of Christie Lane. That's in Mooresville. So we just got a report of some trees down there. I suspect that was actually from the storm itself and not the tornado. Maybe the backside, some strong winds. Remember, on top of this, Colin just mentioned, we're getting very heavy rain. You start saturating the soil out there and you get just a little bit of wind, you're going to bring down some trees. So these storms back to the northwest actually are producing some really heavy rain and some gusty winds, and that might have been enough to bring down some of those trees. So it looks like at least some minor trees. That actually would explain maybe those power outages too, because I think that's
kind of steady too. It hasn't gone up or down either way. Duke has been tweeting out, though, that if you do have any outages in the northern parts of the Charlotte area, kind of like what we're seeing, to let them know, call them in. The crews are already on scene, kind of watching where these outages take place so they can get to them as quick as possible. So.
Yeah, and if you see down lines, stay away from them. You don't know if they're still hot. Make sure you keep your kids away from them. Don't drive over them either. That's another thing. Just stay away from those completely, and let Duke know so they can get out there and make sure those power lines are not alive or active. So that's the storm we're watching. That's the tornado warning currently in effect. Just so you know, a little bit of structure about what we're looking at when we look at the radar. Some of the things we're looking for here is when we got all this wind shear in the atmosphere, the updraft will take that rotation and spin it on its side and create the tornado. When the storm begins to rotate, initially what happens, and this is what we saw over Lake Norman, we saw that lowering. That's the wall cloud. Those are a lot of the pictures I'm getting now from Rowan County. That wall cloud is kind of the precursor to a tornado, but not always a tornado. Oftentimes what happens is the funnel will then start to drop down from that wall cloud. You'll get the funnel cloud first, but you don't know if you can't see the ground. You don't know if it's a tornado or just a funnel cloud. Once it touches down, then you got a tornado. By definition, a tornado is on the ground. It's redundant when people say tornado on the ground because it has to be on the ground to be a tornado. Otherwise, it's just a funnel cloud. So that's the kind of structure we're looking at. When we look at the radar, we can see some of that structure with radar, but honestly, spotters are a huge help to us, and they were today. Most of these warnings issued earlier were because of spotter reports over Lake Norman. Folks like you at home that used the Near Me app on our WCNC app, or you've used Twitter or Facebook and sent me images and pictures and videos of that rotating funnel cloud. And we were able to pass those along and get the warning issued immediately. Because the nice thing about using the Weather Service to issue the warnings, it goes to everybody's phones. Everyone's getting that warning when it comes out from the government. If you were watching us at 4, we were talking about this storm since it was all the way back into Lincoln County, actually way back here when I saw the first signs of rotation and actually looked like a little bit of a hook on it. It is tracked all the way to the northeast. And what I'm watching now, you see all these storms lining up behind it. This is where the flash flooding becomes a big issue because that's training. Each storm is going over the same thing. Think about railroad tracks here, and each storm is a car on the train going over the same spot again and again. That training effect will actually create flash flooding. So we might be transitioning pretty quickly here from a tornado risk, which we have right now, to the flood risk, which we know is going to be a problem for the rest of the week. And that's why we want you to stay weather aware the next 3 days, because flooding is going to become the biggest issue for our area.
And we know that historically we've dealt with some very tragic incidents regarding flooding in our immediate area, but also just outside. I know earlier today, Brad, we were talking about the Hiddenite campground and with Tropical Storm Fred that we had a couple years back west of Asheville, some lives were lost. So folks cannot take this for granted these mornings. Yeah, and the flash flooding is always a concern. It actually ends up being a much bigger threat than the tornadoes, often case because they affect more people. But yeah, if you have any plans to go camping or outdoor plans this week, you need to stay weather aware and be up to date on those warnings. And I would definitely, if I'm camping or anywhere near a creek or stream, I probably would not advise that this week. Get to higher ground. If you are going to do that, make sure you have some way to get warnings. You made a good point, Vanessa, earlier. You go to these locations, sometimes you have no cell service. Cell service is really important for these warnings because the wireless emergency alerts and the warnings put out, if they can't get to you, then you're not going to know that water's coming downstream. So the flooding concern is going to become big, but we got to keep an eye on these cells training. And I'm watching this one near Davidson as well. Just caught my eye real quickly, had a little bit of rotation in it. So the storm in Rowan County is weakened quite a bit, but the storm north of Huntersville, right there near Cornelius, actually has more of a look, has a little appendage there near Meadow Crossing Lane, south of East Rocky River Road. This is northern Mecklenburg County now, south of the Iredell County line. That storm actually has a little bit of hint of that rotation. So be interesting to keep an eye on that. So it looks like they made an update to the warning. It looks like they're going to keep it up, but now they have it moving at 20 miles per hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to update that track
which is a little quicker. We had it moving about 10, which is super slow. It's been 10 to 15 miles per hour, but looking at the new forward speed, we'll track it at around 20 miles per hour. And again, that would put it in Salisbury around 717 now. So a little bit quicker. Still looking at this tornado warning for Rowan County at about 6:47 p.m. There was a possible tornado indicated on radar about 7 miles west of Salisbury, but 5 miles north of China Grove, moving northeast at 20 miles per hour. So just to give you a pinpoint location, it's right there, north of China Grove. That area right in the middle of the screen. It doesn't look like much on radar. It's honestly, there's no rotation there at all. Really not much wind at all, let alone rotation. Barely any rotation, no wind. Looks like it's just fallen apart, which is good news. But we're going to stay with it in case it cycles up here. The warning is set to expire at 7:30, but we'll see if they cancel this early. I would not be surprised if that is the case, guys. We haven't seen damage reports come in, just that tree down in Mooresville, some power outages in that area, but nothing imminent of at least damage from trees or power lines or structural damage that would indicate a tornado touchdown. We do keep an eye on these storms back to the west, though, as I quickly look at those. I'm going to glance at this one near Huntersville. I mean, that one doesn't have much rotation either, but it does have that look on reflectivity. Some of these have had little appendages on them and looks like rotation within them, but these are pushing off to the northeast towards Salisbury, China Grove, and the Mooresville area. But the one in Rowan County is the one that produced all those funnel cloud reports and looked like tornado, but we don't know if it was touching the ground over Lake Norman. Certainly over Lake Norman, looked like it might have been a water spout at one point and maybe lifted as it moved inland.
Well, that's a great point. I want to say thank you, obviously, to all our viewers, who can do it safely, who are not in this storm, gathering those photos and the video, because it really gives us a better look when we're not actually able to get on the ground as well.
Yeah, that funnel cloud picture that we got from Lake Norman
striking.
Was actually, I believe, the first indication that something maybe was awry.
I think you're right.
In the area. And so we'll just remind folks, of course, safety is the utmost concern. But if you do happen to get some great pictures and video and you want to send them our way, of course, you can always tag Brad on social media. He's really great at checking that. But the Near Me feature will actually tag your location. It has a geolocation, and that way we know where the photo was taken.
That's right. And like I said, it helps us tell the story, do it safely. That's the paramount thing, Brad. But it really does help tell us, where they're at and what they're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And spotter reports they're so valuable. I mean, I don't think people understand how important those are, especially in areas in our neck of the woods where our radar data isn't as uniform as we'd like it to be. So spotter reports become key. And that was actually the reason we had the warning issued at all, was due to spotter reports. I was just looking at my chat here, so I'm trying to do two things at once. But we do have, hopefully they're going to cancel this warning earlier if it does not re-strengthen. But there's the video we got earlier. That was over Lake Norman near the Westport area. That was legit funnel cloud. That's rotating. The thing about these videos, the videos for tornadoes and funnel clouds are much more valuable than still pictures. And I will tell you why, because if you can't see rotation, then it's just a dark, low cloud. You got to see that rotation. That's what qualifies as a rotating wall cloud, funnel cloud, or a tornado. It's the rotational aspect, and you need video to see that. So just a funnel-shaped cloud, it looks scary and ominous, but if it's not rotating, then it's completely harmless. In this case, as you saw from the videos, and most of the videos we've gotten have shown that rotation. Now, let's be honest, the rotation is not very strong. It's not what I would call violent rotation, but it's moving. And you can clearly see that on this video from Lake Norman. You see the flag in the foreground. What is interesting is down near the surface, you see some water spray or some spray coming up from the lake. That would probably be indication that that was a water spout at one point. So we would call that a tornadic water spout, because unlike the water spouts you see at the beach sometimes that form because of a low cumulus cloud in the warm water, that doesn't form from the thunderstorm to the surface. It forms from the surface up in many cases. And these tornadic water spouts are actually rotation within the storm itself, and the tornado touches down. So that's what we saw with this cell. It is completely falling apart. I mean, that storm has got nothing. I think we're going to see this probably canceled here in a second, as it looks like it's completely fallen apart. But I do want to keep an eye on this storm back to the west, just because it briefly had a little bit of a hook near Cornelius. That storm right there, I'm just going to zoom in because there is a little bit of a hook there. South of Cornelius, now 115, this is Heritage Green Drive, East Rocky River Road, this gray road right there. There's Walking Horse Trail up to the north, and then Johnson Dairy Road there. But to the south, you see that that's where the rotation is, and that storm is pushing off to the northeast at the same speed. So we'll keep an eye on that, but that one actually looks stronger than the storm that the warning is up for. So that's a good sign that that storm has weakened quite a bit, and we don't see that rotation in there as well. So we're honestly waiting just for the cancellation of this before we go back to programming. We'll probably wait to the top of the hour at this point and get you into wheel in jeopardy here. But we certainly are seeing that storm weaken quite a bit. And Colin and Vanessa, I don't know if you guys have seen any more damage reports or anything. I have not seen any more coming in, and I'm on like 15 chats over here.
No, so the outage map hasn't changed much either, which is obviously a good thing, as you alluded to before. It seems like there's still 79 people without power around the Salisbury area, 400 around Mooresville still. So I think that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. And the Salisbury China Grove stuff actually was looking into it. It looks like that's actually a vehicle-related incident. I don't know I know Brad mentioned really important to stay safe when you get all the heavy downpours. You might lose control of your vehicle. I don't know if it's from that, but it doesn't look like it's from damaged equipment from a downed tree or anything like that. And it looks like maybe some of the other outages, like we did have that 300 customer outage in the Mooresville area. Okay, they did update the cause. It says that outage was caused by an object coming into contact with the power lines, with an estimated restoration around 10 o'clock this evening. We mentioned this before too, but worth repeating. It's important to have some way to get communication and alerts if your power goes out. Yeah,
especially if you don't obviously have power at your neighbor's house or really anywhere close to you. So if you could obviously download the WCNC mobile app, if you have a mobile device that still has power, that may be one of the best ways. Obviously check social media. Maybe just call and text. Brad always talks about this. When you're talking about the tornado warning in these areas, call and check on your neighbors, especially if you know people in that area.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say that you bring up a good point. We have this rule: have 3 ways to get warnings. In case one fails, you've got to back up, and if that one fails, you got to back up to the backup, right? So yeah, wireless emergency alerts. Which, by the way, if you ever heard those things go off, you know what they sound like. They're super loud. That comes from your cell phone carrier and the government. You have no app. You have you don't have to download anything. It costs you anything. You can turn them on or off. Weather apps like ours, WCNC Charlotte app, we will send you push notifications and alerts. Watching us on air, online, streaming, all the different streaming platforms. Social media, turn notifications on. I tweet a lot, but if you want a day like today, turn my notifications on. I always post all my warnings on Twitter. NOAA Weather Radio to the alarm. And then, as Colin mentioned, this is actually a very valuable thing. Even in 2023, calling and texting family and friends is still one of the most effective ways. And honestly, most people will listen to family and friends before they'll listen to me. So go ahead and call them, because if you get that confirming, that's what humans do. It's human nature. We know there's a threat, but when we get it confirmed from another source, we tend to take it more seriously. That's why the pictures, the videos, and hearing it from family and friends, as well as me, will help you take shelter. And that's what we wanted to see today. Thankfully, today was, with all the reports we've had, we haven't seen any damage reports. It looks like this may have just been a tree here and there, just this isolated cell that produced a funnel cloud, maybe briefly a water spout over Lake Norman. But the fact that we have not seen any widespread damage is a good sign. I'm actually, the more I look at this, I start watching this Cornelius storm more than the storm that we're warned for, just because it has a hook on it, but it doesn't show any strong signs of rotation. So I'm looking at all these storms just to make sure, because what happens in tornado coverage, you can get, tunnel vision on that one storm, keep an eye on these other ones just to make sure nothing else is spinning. Nothing else is out there right now, but there are more storms out there. So, there's a lot of swim meets and other things going on, camps. We got a whole cluster of storms moving in, so these will impact. We've already seen some Juneteenth celebrations postponed. Good reason, because there's more storms moving in, and they have lightning, flash flooding, and some strong winds. And then our tornado warning, which is set to expire at 7:30, but we're waiting patiently to see if they're going to continue this all the way to 7:30, because we're getting towards the top of the hour, and I think it might be canceled early.
Yeah, here we are approaching 7 o'clock. In the 5 o'clock hour, when we first got this warning, we actually dispatched one of our photographers to Mooresville, Tony Gutowski. Michael, do we have Tony on the phone? It sounds like he was able to give us an update.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, can you hear him now? Okay.
Hey guys.
Hey, Tony.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, I'm driving up. I'm just north of Mooresville towards the Cornelius. On my way up, I actually had to, and I'm used to driving, obviously, in all kinds of conditions, safely, obviously. But I actually had to pull over into Davidson because the visibility was near zero with the rain. A lot of traffic still on the road on 77. But like Brad was saying, from my observations around here as I get further north, I don't see any damage, any obvious damage in terms of trees down, bushes, debris. The only thing I'm dealing with right now is, very, very heavy rain. And everybody is driving, obviously, with their caution lights on, flashing on 77. But as far as I can see, I don't see any funnels or anything like that from my end of things or damage. Like I mentioned, it's just, driving is a bear and just to take caution.
Okay.
And that's kind of why I pulled over.
Well, please stay safe out there. We appreciate the updates. We got to get another update in, too.
Yeah, ponding on the road is going to be a big issue throughout the evening and the next couple of days here, Brad, too.
Yeah, our map's still displaying it, but I just got word from the National Weather Service in Greer and Greenville-Spartanburg. They are canceling the warning early, so the warning has been canceled for Rowan County for that tornado warning. So as you just heard from our photographer, we've got some heavy rain out there. That's going to be a big issue the rest of the evening. Even though the tornado risk might be declining, the flash flood risk and the heavy rain, it's rush hour in many locations still, so there's still some heavy rain moving through the area. That will be an issue into tonight, into tomorrow, into Wednesday and Thursday. So flash flooding is going to be our big concern. But right now, all tornado warnings have been allowed to expire. They canceled this one early. So the good news is we can take that off, and that warning was canceled early. Now, if you do have pictures or videos, please send them our way. We'll try to get them on the air. I'd love to get them some confirmation on what we've seen. And again, we'll have complete coverage coming up tonight at 11 as well. Stay safe out there, but for right now, we're going to return to your programming, which should start in progress here right at the top of the hour, guys.
Okay. Thanks so much, Brad. And thank you, everyone, for staying tuned and staying up to date. It's so very important. And we'll go ahead and keep you posted as more information comes in.
Yes, and we'll see you at 11 o'clock. Hopefully you join us then.